What if I told you that some of the world's most incredible stories aren't found in dusty old books or giant museums? What if they're hidden in plain sight, on hundreds of tiny islands just floating in the middle of a river? Well, today, let's go find them. Okay, so to find these islands, we've got to go back to the source. And I don't just mean the source of a river. We're talking about the source of nearly all the great rivers of southern India. A place so ancient, so powerful, it literally shapes the climate and life for millions and millions of people. So let's start right there. Our story kicks off in the absolutely magnificent Western Ghats. This is the birthplace of these rivers. And look, this is not just any old mountain range. We're talking about a 1,600-kilometer-long chain called the Sahyadri. These mountains are so old, they were formed when the supercontinent Gondwana broke apart. I mean, that's just mind-boggling. They're a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a global biodiversity hotspot, and they're the lifeblood, the watershed for almost 40% of India. Basically, everything starts here. Okay, so out of that massive range, tons of rivers flow. But for our story, we're going to follow just one, the secret river Kaveri. So the Kaveri, or Pani, which is such a beautiful name, it means the Golden River. She travels about 800 kilometers, all the way from the mountains of Karnataka out to the Bay of Bengal. People call her Jivanadi, the river of life, and for a really good reason. For centuries, she's been the source of everything, water, food, you name it, for entire civilizations. And this quote really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The Kaveri isn't just water. In South India, she's a character, a goddess, a living, breathing part of the culture. She literally collects stories and myths as she flows. All right, now let's dive right into the river itself, because this is where we're going to find those hidden worlds I mentioned right at the start, the islands of the Kaveri. So when researchers actually went and mapped the Kaveri, they found this. And it's a lot. Not 10, not 50, but 245 significant islands. Just think about that. A secret archipelago just hiding in plain sight. Which, of course, leads you to wonder, what are these islands? Are they just random patches of land, geological accidents, or is there something more going on here? Well, to answer that, we have to get into this really cool idea called placemaking. So what is placemaking? It's basically the process, you could almost call it magic, of turning a simple physical space, just a location, into a meaningful place. It's the difference between, say, a random intersection and the corner where we had our first date. One is just coordinates, the other has a story, right? And this Venn diagram here breaks it down perfectly. You've got location, that's just the coordinates, the spot on a map. Then you have the locale, that's the physical stuff, the trees, the water, the actual land. But it's that third circle, sense of place, that's the secret sauce. That's the human part, the feelings, the memories, the history, the stories we attach to it. That's what turns a location into a place. And you can see this in action right here with the Kaveri Islands. Look at Basaveshwarabana. It's not just a vegetated island. People see it as a sacred grove. Dubare isn't just a forest, it's a famous spot for ecotourism, for its elephants. See how human use and belief completely transform what these islands are? So what kinds of places did these 245 islands become? Well, researchers found they basically fall into 5 main themes. Let's walk through them. First up, and this one is pretty profound, we have cultural places. This is where things get, well, cosmic. Okay, this is just incredible. In Hindu mythology, there's this image of Lord Vishnu resting on a giant serpent in a cosmic ocean. Well, along the Kaveri, 3 huge islands, Srirangapatna, Shivanasamudra, and Srirangam, are seen as earthly versions of this. And here's the kicker. As you go down the river, from the first to the middle to the final abode, the islands actually get bigger and bigger, just like the legends say. I mean, that's not a coincidence. It's people literally mapping their sacred stories onto the landscape. That is placemaking on a cosmic level. Next up, historical places. And we're back at Srirangapatna, because it's not just a sacred spot. This island was a fortress. It became the capital of the powerful kingdom of Mysore. It's where Tipu Sultan fought historic battles against the British. The very land itself is steeped in history. It's like a living monument. Okay, the next 2 themes are like 2 sides of the same coin. On one hand, you have places of livelihood. These are working islands, agriculture, fishing. They're the places that support local communities. But then you have the opposite, scenic places. These are islands that are celebrated and protected because they're wild and beautiful. They're habitats for elephants or sanctuaries for birds. It's this amazing contrast between using nature and preserving it.
Now take a look at this chart. It's really telling. Out of all 245 islands, a whopping 150 of them are really small, less than 5 hectares. So you might think, okay, most of these are just tiny, insignificant specks of land, right?
But then you have Srirangam. Remember that one? The final cosmic abode? It's the largest island by far, almost 3,000 hectares, and it's home to one of the most important temple complexes in the entire world. It just goes to show you, significance has nothing to do with size. It's all about the meaning we pour into a place. And the fifth and final theme is a more modern type of placemaking: island gardens. Think of the Brindavan Gardens next to the giant Krishna-Rajasagar Dam. This is where nature meets massive engineering. Humans have created these beautiful, designed parks that celebrate this huge technological achievement, turning an industrial area into a place of beauty and wonder. So, there you have it, 5 amazing types of places. But why does all this matter? Why is looking at these islands in this way so important, especially today? Well, it's because these places are genuinely under threat. And not just from things you can see, like sand mining or unchecked farming. The bigger threat is a failure of perspective. When governments draw lines on a map, they often chop the river up, treating it like a resource to be divvied out, not as one single living cultural network. They see the locations, but they miss the places. And when you lose sight of the stories, that's when you're in real danger of losing the places forever. And that kind of leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What if we started seeing our own world this way, not just as a collection of locations, but as a network of places, each one full of its own stories and meaning? What if you looked at your own street, your own local park, through that lens? How would that change how we value them, how we protect them, and maybe even how we live in them?